Hello everyone, welcome to Court with Krissy. I have no idea why this plaintiff is bringing a suit against the uninsured driver that hit him. The guy is a backyard mechanic. Talk about your lucky day. Look for the silver lining, dude. Now lean back and enjoy Judge Cooper. I hope you like it. Court with Krissy is now in session.
We can get this case after this one. All right. File here. Sir, you are Mr. Hargrove? I can't quite hear you. You may be muted.
How about that?
I can hear you now. Apparently you're in the wrong courtroom, no big deal.
They kept giving me the runaround.
In this case, I had dismissed it because Mr. White wasn't here, but he was having trouble with Zoom, so that happens occasionally, and I simply have reinstated it. Here we are, we're ready to go. I'd ask you to both raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir. Yes. I do.
Okay, the way these work, I'll hear from the plaintiff. I may have some questions, and I'll hear from the defendant. May have some questions, and I'll give you each a brief response to what the other said, and I'll make my decision. So, Mr. White, you've made the claim. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. On October 11th at just a little past 10 a.m., my wife and I were driving. I was driving, or in a vehicle. I was driving. We were eastbound on 32, stopped at the Dickerson light. While we were stopped, we were hit in the rear end. Got out, observed the damage, talked to Mr. Hargrove, who was the other driver in the white vehicle. We pulled around into the gas station. I asked him for his driver's license so we could exchange information and insurance, et cetera, et cetera. He said he did not have it. Either my wife, I don't recall, either my wife called 911 or I did. Police showed up shortly thereafter. I advised the police officer what had happened. I gave him my identification, insurance information, registration, etc., and advised him that Mr. Hargrove had already told me that he did not have a driver's license and had no insurance. We stood in the parking lot there for a bit waiting for the police officer. Mr. Hargrove offered to fix it. I said, I'm not interested in that because we were attempting to sell. We had the vehicle on Marketplace at the time. Had it all cleaned up. Granted, the pictures show it's dirty, but we had it cleaned up inside out. Mechanically, everything was working. I told him that I do not want him to do anything to it because we were trying to sell it, and I do not know what damage may be underneath what I can visibly see. So he insisted again that he would fix it, and I told him no. He says, well, maybe I'll just buy the vehicle. And I told him, well, okay, buy it for $20,000 that we've got it offered for. And he didn't respond. After that, police officer took the report, finished up his report, and released us. I went to the Totem body shop, got an estimate for them to repair it. The rear portion of it was $65. And on the way home, I noticed that my rear tire sensor light was out. I know it was working beforehand because, like I said, we had everything mechanically working on it, checked out, etc. So I took it to Bell Tire. They replaced the sensor, and that was $84.18. I paid $15 for a police report, and I paid $46 to the clerk of courts to file the claim and to provide proof of service. Mr. Hargrove, we have talked a couple times. I have provided the court with a detailed line by line text message. And we also, that was right after the accident. We also had a conversation in March. And he basically hung up on me, said he wasn't going to pay. And he said, quote unquote, I know where you live. I took that as being a threat. So
I can't get into those things. I'm just interested in the accident and any payments. I can't get into any settlement negotiations in that regard. But
he said he was
anything else?
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So all right.
We talked about what was owed, and he said he wasn't going to pay it. He said that tire damage on the for the sensor, that can happen at any time, any place, because tires take a lot of use, which I don't deny that, but it was working beforehand and it was not working afterwards. That's all that I have to say, Your Honor, at this point in time.
Just tell me, the tire sensor you said was 84.18.
Yes, sir. $65 is the, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I gave a packet to the court. There was damage to the this area right here. I'm sorry, I apologize here.
I can see it.
Okay, right. There was damage right there. Totens fixed that. There was no underbody damage, but I didn't really care because I didn't want Mr. Hargrove to work on it.
All right. All right. Thank you. Mr. Hargrove, what did you want to say?
Yeah, well, he's not being forthright. At the scene, we had spoke about me fixing it, and he did acknowledge that, and he was thinking about that. Then I got a phone call from him, and he said, well, to have it fixed by you, I would have to have your phone number. And I had to get your phone number through the police department. So that was kind of strange because it made no sense whatsoever. So, and as far as the tire sensor goes, Your Honor, okay, the reason that there wasn't hardly any damage to this car is because I barely touched it. It was a 1 mile an hour collision. Okay, tire sensors, I could beat that tire with a sledgehammer and it would never affect the sensor. They hit potholes all day long. So me hitting it horizontally, there's no way possible that a tire sensor could go bad. That had to be a coincidence or it was bad beforehand. You have to acknowledge the common sense in that. And so, you know, plus I get $900 a month to live on. I don't know where I would get money to give him in the first place. And I don't understand where I had insurance. He could have called insurance or something. I don't know. So
all right, well, those two things, what your income and the insurance aren't, I'll talk a little bit about insurance in a minute, but those aren't part of my decision in that regard. Mr. White is, then I'll give you another chance, Mr. Hargrove, but Mr. White, anything you want to say in response to what Mr. Hargrove said?
I have nothing of major, but I did not agree. I unequivocally deny that I agreed to have him fix the vehicle. Like I said before, I'm repeating myself and I apologize to the court. We had it up for sale and I did not want him to touch it. I did not agree to him. My wife was standing there when this was discussed, and the police officer was there too. Of course, I have my wife here. If you want me to put her on, I'd be glad to put her on too, but I'm just paraphrasing what occurred that day.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Hargrove, is there anything you want to say in response to what Mr. White said?
Well, no, it's just that there were 2 clips that pop in on that car. I almost had them popped in and he told me not to touch it at that point. At that moment, he said, wait for the police. I don't want you touching it. But I almost had it fixed in the parking lot. So
all right.
he just was being unreasonable, so I couldn't deal with him. He wouldn't let me deal with him at that point, but he did not disagree with me working on the car. So I had that opportunity and he took it away from me. And like I said, tire sensors do not go bad on a 1 mile an hour horizontal collision when they hit potholes at 80 miles an hour and don't go bad. That's just common sense, Your Honor. That it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And if I you know, I'm a mechanic, but I'm just a backyard mechanic. But I can give you with 100% surety, and it makes no sense whatsoever that a tire sensor will go out with a 1 mile an hour horizontal collision. It's just impossible. It's not possible. They're made to take a ton of beating. So that's not true. So if that's not true, what else isn't?
All right, well, here's the court's decision on this. The fact is and I'm not making a decision on this part one way or another, whether or not Mr. White said to Mr. Hargrove, you can fix it, or whether he did not say that isn't relevant to the decision. The decision is simply based on an accident and damages. Everyone agrees there's an accident. The 3 points of damage. Well, first of all, Mr. White, tell me again what the $15 was.
I had to pay to get the police department report.
All right. Okay, well, for that, the first, the back part, the repair, $65 to total, that seems reasonable. It was caused by the accident. Mr. White is not required to say to Mr. Hargrove, if you can fix it, everything is fine. Whatever the reason, he gave him his reason that I'm thinking of selling it, and I just don't want to do it. It doesn't have to have one. It's simply his decision. Just similarly, Mr. Hargrove could not be forced to fix it. As to the sensor, Mr. Hargrove, I will say you make a good point. I have 2 vehicles and the light sensor is on both of those. And I have no idea what happened, but it's there. It seems to happen a lot. I don't pay to have them fixed because it costs too much money. But on the other hand, the testimony is that it wasn't on before and it is on afterwards, whether it was coincidence, whether it was the straw that broke the camel's back, or whether it's something else. These aren't criminal cases, they're civil cases. The burden of proof is preponderance of the evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt. So I do find there's responsibility for that $84.18. The $15 police report charge is not something that's recoverable in small claims court. So the judgment for damages would be $65 plus $84.18, which comes to $149.18. Any prevailing party, which Mr. White is entitled to their court costs, which I have a filing fee of $55 and a service fee of $61. That is $71. So the total is $220.18. The 2 situations that you mentioned, or that was mentioned, is insurance. I have no idea what that will show. Everybody's policy is different, whether it's recoverable by that. Mr. Hargrove, you can go to your insurance company. Maybe they will cover it, maybe they won't. That doesn't matter as to this. Obviously, if they covered it and gave a check to Mr. White, then he's not entitled to recover twice. As to whether or not he can collect, that's often, in fact, usually the hardest part in any of these cases for plaintiffs. I'm required, and I'm going to ask you, do you have a payment proposal to make Mr. Hargrove X dollars per month? You can say, no, I don't wish to make any, or you can make one. It's up to you. If you don't wish to make any, that's fine. It's done here, and then you guys have to do whatever you have to do. Well, did you wish to make?
This is another thing. There's no excuse.
Okay. I'm not going back and forth. I'm just asking you, do you have a payment proposal?
Excuse for ignorance of the law. Why is there excuse for ignorance of technology? This is the second time I've been here. You're dismissed.
I'm going to take that as a no. So the judgment will simply be entered, and you'll both be mailed a copy of that. That does conclude this hearing. Thank you.
Good luck.